So welcome everyone to Critique Hour. Sorry that I was a little bit late today setting up. So I'm going to take a look at a number of pieces. I'm going to take a look at this piece and talk about light environment and framing. I'm going to take a look at this piece and talk about what they did right. Sometimes the piece just looks good and I have no problems with it, and I want to talk about why it looks good. And I want to talk about this little mini sketch someone had on their notebook and what looks right about it and what looks wrong, and how to improve their approach. So before I get started, if you guys are interested in perfecting your portraits, if you guys are interested in learning how to paint form in your portraits, so it's not just about drawing your portrait in a flat way. You actually learn real fundamental stuff. You can get my masterclass. It's on sale. Um, and it's $44.99 right now. It's usually a $100 price for this kind of class. It's many hours, lots of resources. It is a really, really hands-on approach. And I also give you assignments, an assignment calendar to follow to help you stay in that same field of improvement. So a lot of people have used this class, and I have quite I mean, 44 ratings at 100%. So that's gotta say something. I wish everybody who purchased it left a rating, but thank you so much for those who said they really like it. It really is everything I know about portraits poured into one massive master class. So if you guys want to grab it, it's on sale right now. Unfortunately, it's not going to stay at this low price for very much longer. Just before the summer starts, like around springtime, it'll go back up to like 75% of the price it used to be. So it's usually $100. Times are tough. You got to put your price your stuff fairly. But I've had this sale price on for quite a while for anyone. I know that the economy is kind of bad right now, so I always feel bad pricing my stuff at such a high point, but I really do want to explain why it's this expensive at $100. It's because of the amount of work that went into developing this masterclass, and I do want to put it back to that original price, but right now it's at this price for now. But the reason why my stuff is priced a little bit higher compared to other tutorials is because of the amount of expertise that has gone into developing it. Years and years of teaching experience. I am a portrait specialist, and it really just everything that I know, everything that I am has been poured into this. And this is beginner friendly through and through. This isn't just me saying it's beginner friendly to make a sale. I start this portrait that I teach you, this particular portrait, I start it with nothing but a sphere. And I teach you what a sphere is and how to render a sphere. And then I move into blocking and how to block. All the brushes are provided for you. These brushes that are added to this masterclass can be used in Procreate. And then we move into blending. A blending brush is also given to you, and I talk about why you're blending. And also, for those who are technical thinkers, an entire step-by-step written format of the masterclass is also provided. So if you want an actual list of things to do, you're like, Istebrak, just give me a list and I'll follow it. I actually give you a list. So again, this price, that's why it's so expensive. $100 is what it's going to be in a couple of, probably by the end of February, moving into spring, late winter. The price should go back to normal because so much work has gone into this. So I do like to be very honest with my audience, with my viewers, and genuinely apologize for why my price is so high and why it needs to be back to that original price. But to be all honesty, I left it at this lower price out of guilt because it just breaks my heart that somebody might need it and it's just too expensive and out of their price range. But if you want to be better at portraits, it really is what I direct people, not just to make a sale, but I put all of my development effort into this. If you guys want it, it is currently on sale. But again, once again, I'm sorry, it's not going to be on sale for much longer, probably by the end of February, moving into March, something like that. So let's get started with today. I want to take a look at the simple stuff first, so the simple lessons. So this one, let's take a look at this one. What's the issue with this one? What's going on? When I look at it, I see really, really beautiful, clean lines. I also love that you're just doodling on something. I love when I see artists doodling on something. It really just makes me so happy to see that. the you know, the art is always accessible to you. I love looking at that. I love when you guys hand in drawings on lined paper. It's just, oh my gosh, something so nostalgic about that. So the reason why this particular sketch may be a little bit wonky looking, overly stylized, not quite, you know, it kind of looks like an maybe older than you expected. It's also pulling from the trope of very high cheekbones, long chin. You know, this trope where the character may be evil. You know, like a lot of the evil characters have that, like that evil asylum guy from Beauty and the Beast, or the reviewer guy, the critic from Ratatouille. You remember that kind of long, bony face, evil kind of man. So it's kind of pulling from that trope. You see that? We go on for a while before we get to the chin. So that's the first thing that makes this sketch look weird. You may not have been going for that, but you are definitely in the trope of evil, villainous female, mysterious witch female, something like a sorceress. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? You're pulling from that. Tropes are, they dominate the viewer's viewfinder. So your viewer is right here, right? And they're just genuinely trying to look at your art, which is right here. And you thought you were just delivering something. Yay, I'm just drawing. I'm happy I'm drawing. And you delivered something you assumed was a certain look. Unfortunately, society, and I'm going to use a big red line, comes in. Society isn't always bad. Society is sometimes, you know, comes with all kinds of trends and stuff, and that's just what happens. Most of the time these days, society sucks. But in the society of artists, let's say, there are some pre-existing story elements that have been formed into tropes, and these tropes get in the way. So you know, honestly wanted to give us something that you wanted us to look at. And the viewer honestly wanted to see, the viewer wishes they could just see exactly what you intended. And that's what some people dedicate their lives to, the interpretation of art outside of what it may look like in the front. So sometimes your viewer isn't strong enough critically to come, you know, to see past that. They'll just see what's the face value. Sometimes the person who's seeing what's face value, which is affected by the trope, is somebody who might hire you. And so they'll wonder, this is just a very small example. Sometimes a viewer will a student will generally want to be drawing someone who's good, but they'll accidentally overuse some certain tropes that we use only for evil characters on the good character, and they wonder why everyone thinks their art is kind of pulling from a darker style. So sometimes a student's style isn't just about the shapes they use, it's about the tropes they accidentally pull from. For me, for instance, I'm always pulling from a darker trope female character for my portraits. I don't know why. She haunts me. I can't escape her. So that's something that I would accredit to the trope style. Do you see what I'm saying? So when I say the character looks evil, it isn't, oh, Istebrak's being a B word, she's just not letting anybody express themselves. No, it's me reminding you that you are pulling from a trope, okay? So what I would do to normalize her features is probably just get rid of the really overly sized cheekbone, or overly emphasized cheekbone, just so that you can see maybe that's not something you intended. So a softer cheekbone instead of the stronger cheekbone that it was before. So let's see what it looked like before, right? Do you see that really strong cheekbone? That's something that you don't just pick that and then that. No, in the world of art, this is big. This is like a power move for a character. You want to make sure you reserve that for characters that you intended to be that kind of a strong character. The reason why it doesn't match is because of the expression in her eyebrows. She's got this super strong cheekbone, but really, really kind of vulnerable, sad looking eyebrows. Not quite, it doesn't feel like you're telling a straight story with the portrait. Again, I'm a portrait artist, so I'm like really big on telling a story through portraits. I'm not sure if that's my bird making that noise. And then there is that my cat or my bird sneezing? Oh, That's my bird. Sorry, my bird's making weird noises. Abu. Sophie's like hyperventilating or something. Come here. Why are you doing that? Huh? You okay? You okay? What was that? Are you just hormonal? Maybe she's just hormonal. Okay. And then that's really all I wanted to say about tropes. The next thing would be just this right here. All right, so the placement of this eye was not style related. That was just full on kind of disproportionate placement in the eye. So now she'll look like she's looking at a specific object in front of her. So if you wanted her to look like she was looking at someone in front of her directly, yeah, you can bring the pupils and the iris in closer together. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what she was doing. She was like doing this like hyperventilating. And then I'll show you guys what it looked like before. Okay, so see that? So the eye was wonky. One eye was kind of, it's not wall-eyed. What's it called when one eye looks closer into the nose than the other? And then the cheekbone. Do you see what I'm saying? How the continuity of the story that you're telling is not there. It doesn't feel like these were intentional. It felt like these were unintentional mistakes. Okay. And then finally, the eyebrow. Where you place the eyebrow is completely sloped off. It's like slid off the eyebrow bone. Let me talk about why it looks like that. So let's get rid of the eyebrow you do have, both of them. So sometimes you guys throw in the eyebrows without thinking about, okay, where do the eyebrows grow on the face? You can't just put them in haphazardly, because eyebrows are one of the things when it comes to makeup that we go for when we want to make a statement. Meaning that most makeup we ever do, clown makeup, sorry, if this is going to trigger people. No, genuinely, some people get triggered by images of clowns. There's clowns incoming. So when we want to mess around with the human face, we go for the eyebrows. When we want to exaggerate female makeup, was it hi outfit dance? What is that? I think it's this one. When we want to make some kind of performance, some kind of performing arts of some kind from different cultures, they go for the eyebrows. The eyebrows are like huge carriers of expression. So I understand that you guys want to channel that and when you draw, definitely. But these eyebrows are not drawn like somewhere they're not supposed to be. Then we're going into the clown motif. Do you see what I'm saying? When they're drawn where they usually are, but a little bit more expressively, then it's, you know, like some kind of grounded expressiveness. So you have to be grounded in the way you draw eyebrows. Grounded means you have to have some fundamental value there. So when we think about where the eyebrow grows, you just have to find the eyebrow bone. Oopsie. And when we pluck people's eyebrows, I used to work in makeup when I was younger, we draw a line from the nose, from the edge of the nostril, up towards the inner corner, a straight line on either side of the nose. And that helps us, or on the ball of the nose. Sometimes these two things overlap. The ball of the nose or the side of the nose. And we draw a line up. That's where the eyebrow should start. Then we draw a line from here through the iris and out, and that usually helps us find, oopsie, that's not working, helps us find the eyebrow arc. It's not through the 3/4 view eye though, because of the tilt of 3/4 view, we do it in front of the 3/4 view eyebrow. So it's not quite, if there was front view, it would be through the eye, but because we are 3/4 view, this line is lifted above the eye. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So from here to here, in this general vicinity, because of the tilt in the perspective, this is where we'll have the eyebrow arc. And then from here, again, this is in front of, on perspective, the 3/4 view. So if we draw a line from here, draw a line from here, this would be where the eyebrow edge would be. Okay, so same thing on the other side. You usually just follow this line. However, in a 3/4 view eyebrow for the far side, we don't do this. We don't try to draw the whole eyebrow and fit it in enough time before we run out of face. No, we only have space enough for part of the eyebrow, right up until here, before the face rotated away, taking the eyebrow with it. So this is the general place of where your eyebrow should go, and this is where you put yours. Do you see the problem? Do you see how yours was just completely off? But you were trying to be symmetrical everywhere else. So even in these quick doodles that you guys do on your lined pencil or a lined paper or with pencil or something like that, you still need to follow some rules. So I'm going to place the eyebrow here, enlarge it, and change the eyebrow arc. And get rid of some of this stuff. Get rid of this, and voila. The eyebrow looks like it matches the face it's on now. All right, so now her eyebrows are higher than her eyes. They still have that innocent expression. They still have that wondering expression, but they don't look too, they don't look off. They don't look weird. They don't look like they're sliding off the face. Okay, and then the other eyebrow would just go somewhere here. Maybe that's too low. Usually, when we draw a stylized, kind of like Western sort of hybrid style, we slide the eyebrow into the nose. See that sliding that you do? And then you can keep the lips as they are, but they are aging the face. They're aging the face not because of their size, but because of the distance between the nose and the mouth. So if she's younger people, younger faces, this is outside of drawings, just human anatomy, younger means the face has not sagged away from the nose just yet. And so we usually get a mouth that is closer. This feels like she's in the middle of saying something or is just that old. No offense. All right, and so let's take a look at the before and after completely. Before, after, before, after. These aren't mistakes on their own. They're tools used. If a character is really surprised, this is an anatomy mistake and this is an anatomy mistake. The lips being far from the nose, making the face older, isn't necessarily a mistake, but you can see how they're off-putting. Sometimes when a viewer is looking at this and they're wondering why the face feels a little bit off when they look at it. Do you guys see what I'm saying? So before, after, before, after. Any questions at all? All right, let's move on. So flatten image. Okay. So for this one, I think the biggest issue is that you just did an overlay text. Usually these are carved on. And so what you want to do is start showing how some of the flat surface inside the text has shadow cast on it from the relief carving. Make the viewer work a little bit to see what you're trying to write. Don't just, these aren't like signs. These aren't inked in. They're carved in so they last forever. Okay, so I'm just getting rid of some of the excessive text here. And I'm letting it like kind of not really be clear. I'm not trying to make an outline. I'm trying to make it so that the side of the text has cast a shadow. making the viewer squint a little bit, trying to read the name, which adds that kind of graveyard mystery to the scene. But that's not the biggest issue. It was the size of the text and how it takes up most of the painting. So let me show you guys a quick little trick. Let's draw a big circle where we have the most interesting things. If there's a face in your drawing, that's the most interesting thing in the drawing. Write that back to me. If there's a face near some kind of cross section, that's the most interesting thing in a drawing. If there is a face near some really detailed text, that's a very interesting thing. But a text is less interesting hierarchically than a face. So let's draw a big red line or a big red dot over all the things that are interesting. Small little objects that are bright against a black background, those are all interesting, but they're minimally interesting compared. We're going to black out the rest of the paint, gray out the rest of the painting. Look at where you put all the interesting things of the painting. Technically, even though you put a lot of work into the gravestone and whatnot, there's nothing going on here. That's empty space. Yeah, but Istebrak, I put a bunch of stuff. No. Compared to the face, you got nothing else in here. Those are the rules of composition. So a focal point is an area of interest. The human eye that is naturally or artificially drawn to it. So meaning like the human eye either searches for this thing or we manufactured the drawing to attract the human eye by using complementary colors or sharp objects or sharp shapes. Something like that. Something that the human eye, which is a puzzle solver, looks for, which is a detail seeker, looks for. So look at what you did. You put the most interesting thing at the most non-interesting part of the canvas, which is up here. This is not important. This is no man's land. This is the dead zone. We have this space in the canvas, the margins of the canvas. We only put those there because we want to give the viewer and the object in the painting room to breathe. But we aren't supposed to put anything out here. Nothing interesting that really matters happens in the edges. Okay, maybe not to this level, but a little bit wider, maybe like up to here. Okay, so that's the problem with this painting. That's the biggest problem. Look, we have to like break our necks looking maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but we had to break our necks looking up at the top of the canvas trying to find what you did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this like that. But no, I lost the gravestone. I really don't know why the gravestone is that big, but if you really have to show where the gravestone finishes off, like where the end of the gravestone is, you can just add a bit more grass. Okay. All right, and then I'm just going to clean up all of this. And put it back in the spot that actually, I mean, it's still too high, but I'm trying to work with you here. And then I'm just going to, actually, let me move it down just a touch more. Just over here. Add a bit more grass. And try to create like a middle ground between you and the name of the whatever's written on the gravestone and the character. So something way better than where we were though. Okay. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is the fact that the environment, it has no real light source. There's nothing actually explaining where all this light is coming from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my trick. The first thing I'm going to do is get the background value, this one right here. The color of the sky is the color of the environment. Write that back to me. And I'm going to put that on a color layer. I'm going to reduce opacity, so all colors, until I stop until I feel like I have the colors coming through, but they're not coming from like different zones. This red is a very, very warm red. It's on the warm side. It's the same red at the end of the spectrum towards the warm side. That's too warm for nighttime. Way too warm for nighttime scenes. It just does not look that red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let a little bit of purple through. This is still a red dress. Sorry, blue. This is still a red dress, but it's a red dress at nighttime. Have you ever worn a red dress at night? No street lamps nearby, just the light of the moon. It looks a little bit blue. It looks a little bit grayish. It looks a little bit, whatever made the red red from the light of the sun is gone. All that's left is the blue and the red, if that makes sense. Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate the layer and put it on darken next. That is to get all the levels on the same. So maybe I'll actually choose the darker value of the darkens. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete at the light source. Make sure that the light source, which is the moon, even if you don't want the moon to be the brightest object, it still needs to not be dim. And I'm going to make sure that moon reads as a moon. And then I'm going to do that mandatory darkening of the lower half of the canvas. So these are all environmental things. So the lower half of the canvas needs a bit more shadow. This is just something that we inherited from the way you drew your drawing before. All right, so I'm darkening that. And I'm going to delete now at the face wherever I feel like we actually have some light. So let me flatten, let me merge that down, and then delete at this triangle here of the face. Deleted that. Deleted the hair shine. Deleted the chest area and the collarbones. The arms. Deleted the thighs until I just have the volume I need. I don't need to make the legs glow. You were kind of making these legs glow. I'm also a little bit unsure about the way you're rendering the cylinder of the thigh. It shows that you really need to stop and do some form studies. And then I'm going to borrow some of this light here from the moon, and I'm going to expand on the moon's brightness a little bit. Let me see if I can do this without color dodge. Maybe soft light? No, I'm just gonna have to do the color dodge on midtones, and that'll brighten the moon for us a little bit. Okay, and then I'm gonna grab, I love the color you used on the moon. I'm not trying to lose it. So it's like this little purpley color you've got going on. Like bluish purpley. More bluish. Okay. And I'm going to use that on the back of her hair, anywhere where we have a need for rim light. And all of this is going to continue getting erased first. So let me erase that first. A little bit on the dress. A little bit here. And if you feel like your character is kind of getting lost in their background, that isn't because of the change I made. That is because of the fact that you tried to draw real night in a nighttime scene. A nighttime scene doesn't have real night in a painting. Real night is never actually painted. We paint daytime values, but we use nighttime colors. That means that the characters are still working from kind of midtones that we would see in something like, not midday, not high noon, but something adjacent to that. So what I'm trying to do is bring her out of that background value by using the moonlight and a little bit of like a fog. A fog can go a long way while painting. I swear I used to not actually see the mouse, and all of a sudden I'm seeing it. All right, and so I'm letting some of that moonlight kind of come in and illuminate. It's not going to stay this bright, but this is something that'll give us a head start. And then I'm just going to delete at the lower half a little bit. Deleted this a little bit. Lower this opacity a touch. And then try to bring it in for the gravestone. All right. And then lower this opacity again. So now if you want to bring in the trees, let me see if I have any tree stencils I can throw in real quick. Where are you? I put the trees in first, so I'm going to pick like a medium dark. And I'm just going to, actually those are a little bit, maybe this will look a little creepier. Oh, it's so ugly. Okay, no. Bear with me, please. Yeah, I guess that's good enough. And then I'm just going to, nope, I'm going to use, this is so ugly. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that. Okay, and what that's doing now is that we're creating like a layering. So the light that I added for the background, that light slash fog slash glow, is going to not completely, move over the trees in the background. So I couldn't lasso around every tree. So naturally I have to bring in the trees myself. Okay. So now we have like a better idea of what's happening in the background. So now I can comfortably bring in that rim light. And the rim light is really, really important if there's a light behind a character. It's just the most important thing. And so if you're going to do that classic nighttime, scary Halloween nightmare type thing, you really need to follow these steps. It's not real nighttime. It's fake nighttime. The only reason it looks like nighttime is because we use blue in the colors. And you have some nice amount of rim light here. And I would even go to the lengths of getting the moon color, and using it inside the folds to show that this fabric is kind of see-through, catching some of that moonlight glowing out. And it's kind of a back and forth process. Usually I don't mess with opacity without actual layer opacity. I don't try to paint in opacity because that's just exhausting and lots of layer control. Usually if I have one layer, I'll do that, but yeah, it's very, very annoying to have to do that. And so I'm just throwing in this rim light. Be tasteful with the rim light. Don't overdo it. Delete and go back until you have an amount that looks natural but is also very pleasing to the eye. And it can be in kind of like in these like a pattern, like it's on off. So it's on at the tip and it's off right under. It's on again, on at the tip of the ear, and it's off again. See, it's not just one continuous line. It's kind of like a pattern. So yeah, jumping into master studies is a little bit too It's always been an issue with students. And it's very, very obvious when they skip the studies because you can see the things that are getting affected because of the skipping of the study. You're not studying a cylinder is why you are having a little bit of a trouble with the thighs right now. The thighs feel like they're not really part of this environment. They're kind of coming in from another environment, another set of rules. If you're having trouble knowing what homework to do, I do offer an apprenticeship. It's $20 a month. I critique all the homework submitted. This past month, the critique hour was actually really long because I took my time with all the diagnostic homework, but for January, February, we do a lot of diagnostic work, meaning you do a study and you do a no reference portrait, you hand it in to me, and I tell you what you did wrong, what you did right, what's left, and what you need to study, what exact shape you need to study. And I gave everyone response homework. And so if you are struggling to know, if you're struggling with your self-taught journey, if you're struggling knowing where exactly to direct your attention, what curriculum to follow for yourself, there is like a lightweight version of my private tutoring, which is apprenticeship. And it's through my Discord. I have 2 Discords, one public free one and one private paid one. And you guys can join me there. It's always open for new members. There's alternative homework. You don't always have to do the theme homework that we have. You can do your own homework and I'll still critique it. So if you are struggling knowing how to integrate, you still want to do master studies, but you're struggling with how to integrate studies in that master pieces, and don't know how to integrate studies in them, how to make a study work in your favor so that you're improving right away. I always focus on that kind of stuff in my apprenticeship. And that's literally what it is. It's to the letter. It's apprenticeship. You work with me, you ask me questions, and I answer as soon as I can. All of the personal work that you're working on can still be handed in as homework. So this piece could have been handed in as homework for the upcoming months. Maybe not for the diagnostic month because I do need to see what you can do without reference. So I give them a little bit of a challenge. But all other months, all the artists have an option to skip the current month and hand in one piece they're working on. There's so many resources that you guys can look into that I offer, and they all work with the same exact teaching style, which is, okay, what's your main struggle? What is your main fundamental weakness? What's your Achilles heel? And how do we aggressively focus on that so that that improvement that comes out of it isn't some kind of long-term investment? It's right away. Right away, your art improves. Right away, you see a difference because that was the missing piece in your brain to make it all make sense. The next thing I'm going to do now that I kind of corrected the environment is, and this thigh right here needs to respond to the light just a little bit more, is I'm just going to let that little bit of almost like fog show the separation between all of the gravestones. So this gravestone right here actually could be a little bit more dark. Okay, but not that dark. Look, I don't want it to be as dark as other ones. And then right on the outside of it, I'm going to add moonlight just hanging out on the outside of it. Kind of just on the bottom, almost like the moonlight is reflected off the dew in the grass. Okay, and then select inverse and let some of that moonlight in front also of the gravestone. So it looks like it's encased in some kind of fog. And then filter, blur for distance, Gaussian blur. Of course, you guys can do this with a way more organized approach since all I have is my my lasso right now. So again, same thing on the other side for the other one. I just grab some moonlight, that's it, in a new layer, and I just throw in that light to sit on either side of that gravestone, just so the silhouette of the gravestone comes through. And then select inverse and let some of it on the gravestone as well. And then just let some shadow sit on the base of the gravestone. And then delete that, deleted that. And then there's like the shadow of the girl on the gravestone that she's on. She's hardly casting a shadow where she needs to be. So I'm just going to, in a new layer, just cast that shadow. There's no reason for that shadow to be so short. She's on the shadow side. She's on the silhouette eclipse side. So that's just enough invisibility for the gravestone for us to be convinced that it's nighttime, it's etched in, it's relief, it's hardly legible, and it's got like a bit of mystery to it. You shouldn't just have it plastered on and it's more important than the character type situation. You know what I mean? Like, that's just too much attention paid to a gravestone when there's a perfectly perfect girl right here that should be the focus of the painting. The way you drew the cleavage is not exactly, it's just too it's too direct. You know, it's the kind of way a teenager would draw a cleavage when they're trying to doodle cleavage on a locker room or something. I don't know, locker door. You have to direct your focus to the geometric shapes. It is so obvious that you're not focusing on your geometric shapes, because instead of this almost cheesy line you used for the cleavage, you could have used an edge and really just added that cleft between the two of them and one kind of more delicate spot, so they actually look like real boobs and not just you know, some boobs that a guy would draw. Boobs are serious business, okay? And I'm just going to give them a little bit of light. Usually breasts have less light on them throughout the day, so they're more light skinned than the rest of the skin. And because it's a pinup, show more of the boobs. You're trying to show it's almost like a league splash. League splashes are pinups. A little bit of shadow in between the eyebrows, a little bit of shadow on the base of the bangs, so we have that shine in the bangs. So you can see how you rely on an edge, rely on a line where you could have had an edge. That happens quite a bit in your work. And then I'm just gonna fix the hair. I messed up a little bit. The shoulders, I'm not sure what's going on with them, but I'm just gonna leave them alone. These eyebrows are a little bit too sharp. This piece I grabbed from my Discord group. So I accept work for critique from my subreddit or my Discord group. Okay, two sources. My Discord group or my subreddit. Both links are available on my website. Okay, and I'm just going to, since she's kind of an elf, I'm just going to add a little bit of the elf light, ear light trick. Great trick. And that's really it. That's all I have to say about this one. I could go on more, you know, do more. But I don't have that much time. I want to jump into the last piece. Really, I think you should focus on some form studies. Cylinders will go a long way with you. You're missing a lot of the main highlighters, a lot of the main light, what's the word for it? Like a characteristic of light on an object, kind of like the trend lines of some kind of like scientific information graph or something. There's a specific kind of way light likes to trend or move or behave on specific shapes. A cylinder is unmistakable. The way light behaves on a cylinder is the exact same way it behaves on a thigh, exact same way it behaves on a fabric fold. It is one of the most fundamental shapes to learn. And I teach you all about that in my masterclass as well. I tell you which geometric shapes go where in the face every single time. there's some kind of blocking in. I tell you what that trend motion is for the shape. And whatever you learn on a face applies everywhere else. So if you are struggling with form, if you're struggling with beginner, quote unquote, beginner stuff, that does not mean that you're not skilled enough to try my masterclass. It's definitely beginner friendly, truly beginner friendly. Every single brushstroke is listed out for you and explained so you can see the real value of these form studies. That's not just, you know, oh, this artist didn't know how to critique, so they just gave them a general piece of advice. Oh, just go study shapes. I've seen that. I've genuinely seen people getting dismissed. You know, some beginners asking a quick question, and some, you know, not so talented teachers will say something like, just study your shapes, or just study, you know, basics. Go study the basics. It's not just a quick little thing that you can throw at someone. There is real, you know, real value in knowing these trend motions of light or trend movements of light on specific shapes. There is actual skill getting learned there. When you study a cylinder, all types of shapes that you will ever draw pull from a cylinder, and it doesn't just stop at a cylinder. It's a sphere, a cube, a pyramid, any kind, mostly cubes and cylinders, really, that help you understand what to do with your brushstroke when you are no longer dealing with basic shapes. All of the major things I fixed today, from the breast to the thighs, except for the light environment, but that's also learned, had to do with basic shapes, which you are skipping for the glory of painting masterpieces. And, you know, I get it. It's fun. You want to be an artist. You want to paint masterpieces. But there are issues sometimes with that. So before, after, before, less atmospheric, there's some light shining on this really, really important tombstone, but it's not quite etched in. It's not a relief carving. It's just like text, and your text was going over the thigh. I know this may have been a rough painting, but I really hope you fixed some of these things before I got here. And then after, we have atmosphere, we have light moving, we have sharing of colors, the background value, and the tint on which all the colors are seen, or through which all the colors are seen, is the same color. If you feel like, okay, I missed some of that contrast I had, you can just drop the values in a new layer and delete away where you don't need them. So that's something I do sometimes with my paintings. So again, I drop the values with Control L, and now I'm just deleting away so that I have those major drops in value on the bottom of the canvas. If you really miss that. But which of these is more appealing to the eye of the viewer? The one that makes them think they're right there. You can even hear the crickets and hear the wind. It feels real. The viewer loves that experience. And if you remind them that this is a real environment, this isn't just me faking it, they really will like it. They really will appreciate that. You can see how much unnecessary light you had. Let's take a look at the levels in the previous one. I am dropping the levels. The tombstone and the legs are the last to fall. Look at that. The face is already gone, but we still got the legs and arms. It should have not been like that. It should be a little more different than that. So these legs should have long been gone by the time we stop seeing the face. These legs are too bright, because this is the focal point. You could have just cropped the whole piece like this, and that would have been that. That would have been good. But if you want to have that vertical canvas, you need to do something else. So if you want, you can do another level change where you're bringing up the highlights as well. So let's spike the highlights up just a little bit, and go to before we did that, and delete away at her to continue her silhouette, but it's not quite that silhouette. You see what I'm saying? So the spike in the highlights only happened for the background, and you get that contrast that you feel like you might be missing back. I'm not a big fan of the boost in highlights because it being more foggy and kind of dim, kind of a little bit leaning on pastel, pulling from pastel a little bit. makes it so that it's more nighttimey. You know what I mean? And so all those little eyes that you had here, you can bring them back. You can bring those evil eyes, you know, evil characters back to bring in that extra color. Be careful where you place them so that they don't drag attention away from the viewer. But you can put them there. Yeah, from the focal point, sorry, not from the viewer. And that's it, really. That's all I have to say about this one. Before, after, I'm going to get rid of the little lights so you guys can just decide them on your own. Before, after. Yes, now we can see here lies something, but I can't make it out. Ooh, this is such a mysterious. Who is she? Is that her grave? Oh, you know, not here lies Valana. Like it's just, it's okay. We get it. It's a tombstone. Let's not make it too, let's not take away the mystery that is the mystery of a graveyard. You know what I'm saying? It's a very mysterious place mixed with a lot of fear and unknown. Make the writing difficult to read. One of my favorite moments where that happens in media is when we are at the final episode of Over the Garden Wall. And I'm sorry if you haven't watched it yet. Spoiler alert, you know. And we see Wart and Doug, or Douglas. What's his name? What's his brother's name? Doug? Is it Doug? No, it's not Doug. Oh, what's his brother's name? I love him. They're walking through the graveyard on Halloween, and we can see in the graveyard, barely written there, Greg. We can see in the graveyard, barely written there, is the name of the characters they're going to meet. So they were actually in the land of death. And it was just so cool. I love that show. But that was a really, really cool way that they kind of put it in the foreground, made the graveyard more mysterious. So the viewer is kind of searching around, trying to read the name. That's what you want your viewers to do as well. Oh, this must be her, V-A-L. I know this character's name is Val something. Oh my gosh, that must be her grave, instead of just out in the open like that. Okay, be more mysterious. Don't give it up right away. Okay. And then let's move on to this one, which they so lovingly wrote work in progress for us. All right, we all know that when an artist writes work in progress, they just don't want to be told to fix anything. Hey, this is still a work in progress, so any mistake I made, just understand, please, that this was a work in progress. Don't judge me. Don't judge my mistakes. We all think the same. You will not be spared just because you wrote work in progress. I'm kidding. This is a piece I brought in because I just want to fangirl over it. It's really, really well done. I love this color. I love those brush strokes. Like, wow. I'm I'm so pissed off by the work in progress that they wrote. I just want to show them there's no escape. You could have written it all over. I'll be here all day fixing it. And I'm just gonna, yeah, work in progress. Yeah, just look at look at what happened. There's no escape. All right. So, wow, look at this beautiful painting. Absolutely majestic. I can already see some kind of like black cauldron background, you know, like I can already see the characters just all walking through here. The one thing that I would say is an issue is that it's very foggy without any fog to explain the fogginess. It's just a little bit too, it's not enough contrast. But I don't want to go and use an entire collective contrast slider on it. So what I'm going to do is try to be a bit more particular with what exactly needs the contrast. So I'm going to get rid of this tree lasso here. It's really mostly the foreground trees. If you could just give us some contrast on those trees, the fog that is the midground would make a lot of sense. But the background and the foreground all have a really, really similar paleness, which is canceling out the depth. Depth, can anyone describe to me what depth is? Does anyone remember the rules of depth? What's the foreground, what does the foreground do in depth? Not that that makes much sense in that kind of phrasing, but whatever. And I'm just gonna lasso this. I usually ask questions while I lasso, so you guys don't rush me. So we're waiting for somebody else, not me. See that psychological manipulation that I do? Foreground gets darker. Beautiful. Istebrak has time to remove whip tonight. Get ready. Foreground offers contrast from background. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do is duplicate the foreground. And I'm not going to drop it in levels. I'm going to drop it just in this part of the slider. Wow. That was all that was needed. I'm genuinely surprised myself. Before, after. That's it. The thing is, it's so nice the way you did it before. I can forgive the lack of depth. So I really just loaded this up just so that I could just wow at it. Because I love how you stayed consistent and true to your brushstroke style. These large brushstrokes that you have, I think that was mine, I don't know. They're so consistent. Your brush didn't change too much while you were painting. Love the impressionism here. I mean, it's beautiful, just beautiful. But you could have used a little bit more contrast. And though, you know, we decreased the contrast and we lost the color charm. So what you can do is preserve the color. You're only really darkening. I want to bring that color back that you had, which was this purple. So I'd have to do that either manually or saturate. Again, it's so ugly when you saturate, right? So just like a saturated but darker version of this. So just this value right here would be what's here. You can bring those colors back, all the colors that you lost after darkening. Sometimes style is really reliant on color. So maybe I can, no, color mode won't do it. It's just not going to work. But you have to hand paint it in. But I hope you see that I really genuinely want to see your style preserved as much as humanly possible. I don't want you to think that we're trying to take away from the style by adding depth, or that you need to change anything about the way you paint. But a little bit of depth makes it look more complete, because unfortunately there is a slight error. It's like a slight taste in the air of incompletion in this piece. As beautiful as it is, something feels incomplete. And I think it's because of the missing piece of the puzzle. You don't even have to make the whole thing dark. See how I deleted the middle area? You don't even have to make all the trees dark. You can only make them dark only at the tips. That would still look complete. But we need to show there is the amount of depth we need to pull this layering off. It's very, very classic go-to in all old animated movies. Foreground is always a little bit darker. We tend to miss that as the viewer. Okay, it was just a touch too bright. Fog without really fog being there. The fog hue without the fog physically being there to make the hue happen. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's another thing that is a sign that maybe you need to do a study of some kind of, not a realistic drawing. Sometimes doing studies of realism is bad, especially if you're trying to formulate style. It's like resetting your brain. Don't do that. If you're trying to genuinely form a style, stay away from realism. Study masters who have mastered the style. Like, study them like crazy. Like, get a notebook and write down what you notice. Do all of that stuff. So I think studying some classic animation slides, some backgrounds, panoramas, might help you understand the exact level of depth needed to pull this stuff off, because your painting style is beautiful. Your control, your general framing, I mean, you put things exactly where they were supposed to be, and I really think you're going to go a long way with your work. Beautiful job. This was from my public Discord. I know it can get pretty confusing keeping track of how I collect work for critique. All right, let's recap. If you submit your work for this into the subreddit, go to istebrak.com and click on the subreddit. You can submit your work here and I will critique it if you submit it here. If I can get to it, if it's related to the theme I'm going for. You can also go to the community tab and join the official public free Discord server, where there is a critique channel, this one, general critique. And that is where I found the piece today. That's free. This Discord is not free. Okay. This is the one that is not free. That is my patron Discord. If you click here, you can you will be taken to my Patreon where you can subscribe as an apprentice. If you subscribe on the lower tiers, you still get my personal work, design journals, brushes. There's all this other stuff. But if you want to support me just because you like what I do here, you can also do that. But that's it for today. Thank you all for joining. Please remember, if you want to submit your work for critique, I don't always get to every single piece, but I try to get to most of them. Lately, the subreddit's been a little bit slower, and so I can actually get to everyone's work. Thank you all for watching. I hope you guys learned something today. The next class will be Tuesday the 18th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Happy almost Valentine's Day to you guys. I'm happy you guys are tuning in lately to the streams. The stream numbers are going up a little bit, which is very exciting. And I'll see you guys next class. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.